I supposed to go to Russia? But what I want is a drink.
Even as most productions were brought to a screaming halt last year, TV has continued to thrive. It has even expanded its borders at a pace that made it impossible for average viewers to keep up with, unless their full-time job was to watch TV shows. The seemingly endless selections of shows on TV this year can easily overwhelm viewers, and in the spirit of not wanting you to waste your time watching pointless shows, we have come up with a list that will usher you in the right direction. Let this list be a guide to the bright spots on TV this year. But first, a simple reminder on how to enter our brand new giveaway. We're giving away either an iPhone X Max, the new iPad mini, or a MacBook Pro. It's all your choice, so be sure to leave a like, comment the keyword, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter this giveaway. It's really that simple. Hot off the press is High Fidelity on Hulu. High Fidelity is not new. Most of us have read it before and have seen it on film. However, the show on Hulu has infused it with fresh juices and stars like Zoe Kravitz, who also happens to be the show's executive producer. Zoe Kravitz brings life to the role of Rob, the owner of a record store who is obsessed with music and afraid of commitments. The show borrows the original plot of Nick Hornby's novel and even has some of the same dialogue. However, the show does not revolve around a guy. It has a woman in the lead who has had both male and female exes in the past. This iteration in Hulu is just as entertaining as its predecessors, but is more contemporary, if you ask us. Next on the list of the best shows of 2020 is Nat Geo's City So Real. This genius documentarian behind America to Me and Hoop Dreams Steve James is back with a 5-part miniseries which many consider to be a master class in portraying dozens of people as small pieces in a large, messy system without losing their individuality. Steve James spent most of the 2019 Chicago mayoral race talking to just about every person on the street. He spoke to drivers, mayor candidates, barbers, activists, small business owners, and campaign managers. The politics in Chicago are notorious for their corruption and nastiness, and these are exactly the reasons why the piece is so riveting. The 2019 election to replace Rahm Emanuel offered an abundance of behind-the-scenes intrigue. James possesses the innate gift of cleverly putting together a colorful picture of nuanced and complicated situations, which makes the series worth watching. The final episode sees them revisiting the people they have spoken to amid the global health situation. It astutely imparts the lesson that a society immersed in crises of its own making will be in a dangerous situation when an unforeseen tragedy strikes. And then we have the Queen's Gambit on Netflix. A list of the best shows of 2020 without the Queen's Gambit is a travesty. So let's discuss why the show is one you must see. It doesn't matter if you play chess or not, this show will entertain you. The miniseries, which debuted in October of 2020, quickly becomes a sensation. It revolves around an orphan chess prodigy, Beth Harmon, portrayed by Anya Taylor Joy, whose instinct for the game eventually turns her into a world-class competitor. Chess is a game that is dominated by men, and Beth only had the twin demons of addiction and childhood trauma standing in her way to greatness. Viewers called Beth a fashion icon, and in loyalty to the show, were more than happy to go out and purchase their very own chess sets in anticipation of a long winter. Thankfully, the Queen's Gambit is more than just a pretty face and an enviable wardrobe. Based on the novel by Walter Tevis, who used bits and pieces of his biography to put more life into Beth, the show also delves into addiction and the results of growing up without a family and feeling isolated. The Queen's Gambit is not just strategic, it is also suspenseful and sexy. There's also Taste the Nation with Padma Lakshmi on Hulu. Having been Anthony Bourdain's fans through and through, even after his unfortunate demise a couple of years ago, we have always been wary of shows that follow a similar path as Bourdain's acclaimed No Reservations. So, when we heard of Taste the Nation with Padma Lakshmi, we were more than skeptical. The series explores the inspection of food and geography, but fortunately for us, it is more than the sum of its parts. She reminds viewers on each episode that she is an immigrant, and the show is an ode to the many ways American cuisine has been and is constantly shaped by the immigrants who continue to come to the country regardless of their reasons. Lakshmi charms the people she interviews thanks to her knowledge of food and her eagerness to join them in the preparation of the most delicious dishes. The show opens your eyes to the plight of the immigrants, not to pity them, but to admire their courage, as well as their conviction. It also provides sharp commentary on the hot topics of appropriation and assimilation. Immigration Nation on Netflix deserves a mention here too, another show that delves on the issue of immigration, Immigration Nation brings an urgent, complicated, and urgent issue in American politics to the forefront. The subject has given us more questions than answers in the last few years, and even though it would be impossible for one series to address all viewers' queries about immigration, the show comes very close to providing people with a comprehensive look on the topic. Thanks in part to the unprecedented access to the ICE apparatus, which the government apparently later regretted. The directors documented cruelty, prejudice, confusion, and even some flagrant cases of people working for the office who are defying rules and regulations. This series succeeds in giving a face to the immigrants who are affected by the immigration policies made, such as the woman who was deported after bringing her granddaughter to the US in a bid to avoid a forced union to an MS-13 gang member, and the toddler who was suddenly torn from his father's embrace. Immigration Nation does not promise to please everyone. On the contrary, it will make you uncomfortable as you uncover the immigration problems that abound. It should be made essential viewing for all. Another show that deserves to be on this list is Mrs. America on Hulu. The performances alone on the show are reason enough to watch the show. Cate Blanchett headlines the show as Phyllis Schlafly, but there are other characters on the show that help bring it to greater heights, such as Rose Byrne as Gloria Steinem and Tracy Ullman as Betty Friedan. In the 1970s, feminism enjoyed a surge in popularity, and the movement seemed poised to make gender equity a reality with the Equal Rights Amendment. However, by 1980, the feminist consensus had been driven out due to disagreements over the politics of sex. The show has not been spared controversy, as there were concerns that it was unfairly being centered on Schlafly instead of the other more progressive women of the era. Other people think that the story seeks to excuse her behavior. However, such is not the case. The full season puts not only the spotlight on Schlafly, but also her enemies and her allies in a bid to illustrate just how heartless and damaging her politics got. The series does not make excuses and portrays her as the villain she is. While painting a different portion of Schlafly, Mrs. America also manages to adeptly demonstrate the limitations and power of feminism. Give The Good Lord Bird on Showtime a watch and you won't be disappointed. The series is based on the novel by James McBride and is brought to life by Mark Richard and Ethan Hawke. The show charts Brown's crusade that led to the famous 1859 failed West Virginia raid that sparked the Civil War. Told through the POV of a slave boy mistaken for a girl by Brown, The Good Lord Bird steers clear of rose-tinted glasses when inspecting the country's history. The show astutely avoids simplistic morality and opts for something complex as it casts its eye on the tragedy of racism and the havoc it wreaks in the country. Ethan Hawke, who plays the lead character, delivers a performance worthy of an award. His acting is intense, tremendously layered, and sets fire to the cultural ideas of the white savior with honesty. Cheer on Netflix is a show that should have a spot too. Who doesn't love cheerleaders? They're sexy, sporty, and they cheer on teams so they can win important matches, right? Cheerleaders have been the focus on a few movies. Bring It On is the very first to come to mind. At the start of the year, a show about Navarro College's cheerleader became a hit with the audiences. The show follows a few young college athletes as they undergo preparations for the national championship. The show gets access to their relationships, their personal lives, their coach's mentorship, and the punishing details that made them the absolute best in their sport. Let's admit it, we all wanted to be popular cheerleaders when we were younger. They were the envy of everyone, and they were the cool kids. However, being a cheerleader isn't easy, as you will see on the show. Cheer is a show which you should give a chance. Lastly, there's I'll Be Gone in the Dark on HBO. The 6-part documentary is the account of late author Michelle McNamara when she investigated the murder and serial rapist whom she dubbed the Golden State Killer. Joseph James DeAngelo, the man who pled guilty to 13 counts of murder and accepted a deal that will see him avoid the death penalty and only serve life without parole, is the subject of the show. However, it is so much more than a true crime series. Although it focuses on the heinous acts committed by the perpetrator in the 1970s and the 1980s, it also chronicles the author's obsession with the case. The show even forces viewers to consider the roots of the author's seeming fixation on true crime, and it also succeeds succeeds in portraying the victims as multi-dimensional humans who deserve respect. Unfortunately, McNamara died in 2016 of a fatal mix of prescription medications while she was writing a book about her experience. So there you have it, a list of the best shows on TV this year that are worth a watch. We know you have a lot of time now since most places are on lockdown, and we are advised to stay indoors, so there is no excuse to miss them.